Good evening, and welcome back to Whispered History. Tonight I invite you to leave behind the worries of the day and step into a place where history and legend blend so completely that even after more than a century, no one can say where one ends and the other begins. As you settle in, let your breathing slow and your thoughts grow lighter. This evening, our journey takes us into the rugged heart of the Arizona desert, where towering cliffs glow red beneath the setting sun, where giant cacti stand like silent guardians, and where jagged mountains cast long shadows across a land filled with whispers of forgotten stories. Imagine a place so mysterious that generations of explorers risked everything for a chance to uncover its secret. A place where fortunes may have been hidden beneath ancient stone, where disappearances fueled speculation, and where countless maps promised riches but delivered only more questions. Tonight, we begin the story of one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries, the legend of the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. Whether this hidden mine truly exists or whether it is simply one of history's most captivating legends, remains a mystery that continues to fascinate treasure hunters, historians, and dreamers alike. As always, we'll move slowly through this story, gently separating history from folklore, allowing each chapter to unfold at a peaceful pace. Before we begin, if you enjoy these calming history journeys, consider subscribing to Whispered History. It helps the channel grow and allows more stories like this to be shared. And if you'd like, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from. I always enjoy reading them. Now lower the lights, settle in, and let your imagination carry you into the quiet desert night. Imagine yourself standing in central Arizona as the last rays of sunlight disappear behind a jagged mountain range. The air is warm but no longer harsh. The desert, once shimmering beneath the intense sun, now begins to cool. A soft breeze carries the scent of dry earth and creosote. Above you, the sky transforms, orange fading into crimson, then into deep purple until countless stars begin to appear. The desert is quiet, not completely silent, but peaceful. A breeze moves through the spines of towering saguaros. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote calls. Small nocturnal creatures begin their nightly routines beneath the vast sky. Before you rise the Superstition Mountains. Their dark shapes stretch across the horizon, sharp peaks and deep canyons hiding in shadow. Massive cliffs seem to guard secrets that have remained hidden for centuries. Standing here, you may feel something difficult to describe. Not fear, not excitement alone, but a quiet sense of wonder. Perhaps it comes from knowing that countless others have stood here before you, asking the same question. What if the stories are true? For more than a century, people have come here believing they might be the one to discover the lost Dutchman's gold mine. Some carried maps, others followed old journals, some trusted symbols carved into stone. Others relied on stories passed down through generations. Many returned empty-handed. Some believed they came close, and a few never returned at all. Their disappearances only deepened the mystery. It is tempting to imagine the legend beginning with a single dramatic discovery, a miner stumbling upon a cave filled with gold before vanishing forever. But history is rarely so simple. Instead, the story grew slowly over time. Each generation added something new. Each unanswered question invited imagination. Each rumor strengthened the legend. Over time, these mountains became one of the most famous lost treasure locations in American history. Yet even without the legend, the Superstition Mountains are extraordinary. Formed millions of years ago through volcanic activity, they were shaped by eruptions, erosion, and time itself. Wind, rain, and heat carved the rugged cliffs and deep canyons we see today. At sunrise, they glow gold. At midday, they appear pale beneath the sun. At sunset, they turn deep purple against the horizon. Their appearance is always changing. Perhaps that is part of their mystery. Long before European explorers arrived, indigenous peoples lived here. They understood the land, where to find water, how to travel safely, which plants could sustain life. They did not search for gold. They sought balance with the desert. The desert rewards patience. It punishes haste. A lesson many later prospectors would learn the hard way. At first glance, the desert may seem empty, but look closer. A hawk circles overhead. Jackrabbits move between cactus. Lizards slip into cracks in the stone. Life is everywhere. Everything here is adapted to survive. Humans, however, often struggle. Water is scarce. Shade is limited. Distances are deceptive. Temperatures can be extreme. Flash floods can appear without warning. This landscape demands respect. Many who searched for treasure underestimated it. Some paid dearly, yet people kept coming. Why? Because gold holds a powerful place in the human imagination. It represents more than wealth. It represents possibility, a new beginning, freedom, hope. Perhaps that is why this legend endures. People are not only searching for gold, they are searching for something more. Imagine arriving here in the late 19th century. No highways, no marked trails, no maps on a screen, only horses, rough paths, scattered camps, and endless wilderness. News travels slowly, rumors travel quickly. One prospector claims to have seen rich gold. Another says the mine is cursed. Someone else speaks of hidden guardians. Around campfires, stories grow. Facts blur. Legends take shape. Some dismiss the tale. Others begin to search. Years pass. Decades pass. Still, the mountains remain silent. Each failed search somehow strengthens the mystery. If no one has found the mine, perhaps it is still hidden. Or perhaps those who found it never revealed its location. The possibilities remain endless. That is why the legend continues today. Books are written, documentaries are made, researchers study old records, geologists examine the land, treasure hunters still set out before dawn, and every year, visitors arrive hoping they might notice something others missed. Imagine walking deeper into the mountains as night settles in. The stars grow brighter, the air cools. Your footsteps echo softly against ancient stone. Somewhere beyond the next ridge, perhaps hidden within a canyon, lies the answer. Or perhaps there is no mine at all. Perhaps only the story remains. As we continue this journey, we will explore both possibilities. We'll meet the people connected to the legend. We'll examine what history tells us. We'll separate fact from folklore. And we'll discover why, even today, the mountains seem to guard one final secret. Because sometimes the greatest treasure is not gold. Sometimes it is the mystery itself. And here, beneath a sky filled with stars, that mystery is only just beginning. Imagine the first light of dawn spreading slowly across the Arizona desert. The stars begin to fade one by one as the eastern horizon glows with soft shades of gold, pink, and pale orange. Long shadows stretch across the valleys, and towering saguaros stand like silent guardians over a landscape that has remained largely unchanged for thousands of years. The air is cool and still. For a brief moment, the desert feels almost suspended in time. Before prospectors arrived with dreams of gold, before newspapers told stories of hidden treasure, before maps were drawn and legends were written, this land already held a history older than nearly every nation on earth. To understand the mystery of the lost Dutchman's gold mine, we must first understand the mountains themselves. The Superstition Mountains rise sharply from the Sonoran Desert, their rugged volcanic cliffs shaped by millions of years of wind, rain, and shifting earth. Ancient lava flows hardened into jagged ridges, while erosion carved deep canyons that twist and turn through the rock. Some of these canyons are so narrow that sunlight reaches the ground only for a short time each day. Others open into wide, quiet valleys where the desert stretches endlessly toward the horizon. At first glance, the desert may appear harsh and unforgiving. The ground is dry, the sun can be intense, water is scarce. Yet despite these challenges, the desert is full of life. Towering saguaros stretch toward the sky, some living for over a century, their arms reaching outward like silent witnesses to passing time. In the spring, wildflowers bloom after winter rains, covering the ground in bursts of yellow, purple, and red. Mesquite and Palo Verde trees offer shade, their branches alive with birds and insects. Small animals move quietly through the brush, leaving delicate tracks in the sand. Even the rocks themselves seem to change. Gray, red, brown, and purple tones shift depending on the angle of the sun, creating a landscape that feels different with each passing hour. To modern visitors, the desert may seem empty, but it never has been. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples lived here, learning how to survive and thrive in this environment. They understood where to find hidden water sources, which plants could provide food or medicine, and how to read the land in ways that outsiders often could not. Among them were the ancestors of today's O'odham communities, as well as the Apache, who later became closely connected to these mountains. Their knowledge was not written in books. It was passed down through generations, through observation, experience, and careful attention to the rhythms of the land. To them, the desert was not confusing or dangerous. It was familiar. It was understood. This difference in understanding would later challenge many treasure hunters who arrived with maps and stories but lacked the deep knowledge needed to navigate such a complex environment. Over time, the mountains became part of stories. Some settlers believed strange lights appeared among the cliffs at night. Others spoke of mysterious sounds echoing through the canyons, or unusual compass behavior that seemed to defy explanation. The name Superstition Mountains itself reflects this sense of mystery, though its exact origin remains uncertain. Yet the real dangers of the mountains are not imagined. Steep cliffs can crumble without warning. Loose rock can shift beneath a single step. The desert heat can become overwhelming, especially during the long summer months. Water is limited, and sudden flash floods can transform dry washes into rushing rivers within minutes. Many who underestimated these mountains found themselves unprepared. Still, despite these challenges, the landscape can feel deeply peaceful. Imagine walking through a quiet canyon at sunrise. Cool air lingers in the shade of the rock walls. Birds call softly in the distance. A hawk glides overhead, carried effortlessly by rising currents of warm air. Fresh tracks in the sand reveal that animals passed through during the night, leaving behind quiet evidence of life unseen. There is no noise of cities, no rush, only stillness. Nothing here suggests hidden treasure. And yet within a few generations, these same mountains would become famous across America. That transformation began with the arrival of European explorers. In the 16th century, Spanish expeditions moved northward, searching for wealth, land, and opportunity. Stories of golden cities, places filled with unimaginable riches, spread quickly, growing larger and more detailed with each retelling. Though those cities were never found, the belief that great wealth lay hidden somewhere in the unknown remained strong. Gold has always inspired powerful dreams. The idea that one discovery could change a life forever proved irresistible. Imagine hearing that somewhere in these mountains, gold lay waiting, hidden, untouched, waiting for the right person to find it. Would you search for it? Many did. But long before treasure hunters arrived, these mountains already held value. providing food, shelter, and meaning for those who knew them best. As seasons passed, cool winters, blooming springs, scorching summers, and calm autumns, the mountains remained unchanged. Human stories came and went, people arrived with hope, some left with disappointment, others never returned at all. But the mountains endured. Perhaps that is part of their mystery. They do not reveal their secrets easily. Over time, as travel increased and stories spread, rumors began to grow. Each retelling added new details. Each storyteller shaped the narrative in small ways. Gradually, fragments of truth blended with imagination. And so the first whispers of hidden gold began to drift across the desert. At this point, no Dutchman has appeared. No secret mine has been found. No clear map exists. Only ancient mountains. And the quiet suggestion that something valuable might be hidden among them. In our next chapter, those whispers will begin to take shape as early explorers and settlers introduce the first stories of hidden gold. Stories that would slowly grow into one of America's greatest and most enduring mysteries. Imagine the desert awakening beneath another Arizona sunrise. Golden light slowly spills over the jagged ridges of the Superstition Mountains, illuminating canyons, cliffs, and ancient stone that have stood unchanged for millions of years. Shadows retreat into narrow ravines as warmth spreads gently across the land. A soft breeze carries the familiar scent of creosote, and somewhere in the distance a cactus wren begins its cheerful morning song. Standing here, it feels as though these mountains have always looked exactly this way. The rocks remain unchanged. The saguaros continue their slow, patient climb toward the sky. The desert moves to rhythms far older than memory itself. Even the silence feels ancient, as if it has been carefully preserved across countless generations, untouched by time and quietly echoing the past. Yet the people who crossed this land changed over time, leaving behind stories that slowly blended into legend. Now imagine the middle of the 16th century. Spain has become a powerful empire, sending explorers, missionaries, and settlers into unfamiliar lands. Much of North America remains unknown, marked by blank spaces on maps, spaces filled not only with uncertainty, but with possibility. Perhaps there are great cities waiting to be found, perhaps rivers rich with trade, perhaps mountains filled with gold. Gold, above all, captures the imagination. Stories of hidden wealth travel far, growing richer and more detailed with each retelling. Around campfires, after long journeys, travelers share tales of shining rocks, secret valleys, and places others refuse to enter. Each storyteller adds a small detail, a hint of mystery, a suggestion that something extraordinary lies just beyond reach. No one can confirm these stories. No one can dismiss them either. That uncertainty makes them irresistible. In the vast deserts of the Southwest, rumors spread easily. Travel is slow, communication limited, and verification nearly impossible. A single story can travel hundreds of miles, changing slightly each time it is told, shaped by memory, imagination, and hope. Imagine a group of Spanish explorers moving carefully through this unfamiliar land. Their journey is slow and difficult. Water is scarce. The terrain is unforgiving. Every distant mountain seems closer than it truly is. Every canyon might hide something unknown, something that could change everything. Their maps are simple. Much remains uncertain. Some explorers search for wealth driven by dreams of discovery and fortune, but others, missionaries, travel with different goals. They build missions, cultivate land, and record what they see. Their journals describe rivers, plants, and daily life rather than treasure, preserving small details that would otherwise be forgotten. History, after all, is often made of ordinary moments. Still, rumors persist. Over time, scattered stories begin to form larger legends. One enduring idea suggests that Spanish miners may have once discovered rich gold deposits hidden within these mountains. Some say they marked secret trails. Others claim they buried maps. A few even whisper that they concealed their discoveries to protect them from others, leaving behind clues only the most determined might one day uncover. Yet historians have found little evidence to confirm these stories. There is a difference between possibility and proof. Spanish miners did search for minerals in the Southwest, that much is certain, but whether they found an extraordinary mine in the Superstition Mountains remains unknown. Imagine kneeling beside a quiet desert stream. Tiny flecks of mineral sparkle in the sand. For a moment you wonder, could it be gold? Perhaps. Or perhaps it is simply mica catching the light. Nature often creates beauty that resembles treasure. The desert encourages imagination. Sunlight transforms ordinary rock into brilliant color. Quartz veins shimmer. Iron-rich stone glows deep red at sunset, creating illusions that can easily be mistaken for something more valuable. Even experienced miners were sometimes misled, yet each disappointment left room for hope. If not here, perhaps just beyond the next canyon. Imagine continuing deeper into the mountains. The trail narrows, cliffs rise above you. The path bends, hiding what lies ahead. The air grows still and the silence deepens, as though the mountains themselves are watching. That feeling, the sense that something might be just out of sight, has drawn explorers here for generations. Mountains conceal their secrets. One valley leads to another. The unknown always waits beyond the next ridge. As cultures met and exchanged ideas, stories evolved. Indigenous knowledge, Spanish exploration, and mining traditions blended together, shaping new interpretations of the same landscape. Imagine three travelers describing the same mountain. One sees danger, another sees beauty. The third sees hidden gold. None are wrong, they simply notice different things. History works much the same way. Facts remain, but interpretation changes. Over time, stories grow, shift, and merge, shaped by those who tell them and by the hopes they carry. That is how legends are born. The Lost Dutchman story rests on real foundations, real people, real places, real searches. But around those facts, imagination has added layer upon layer. A miner once mentions unusual yellow rock. Years later, it becomes rich gold ore. Eventually, it becomes legend. We are natural storytellers. We seek meaning. We are drawn to mystery. Across cultures, stories of lost treasure appear again and again. Hidden cities, buried riches, forgotten places waiting quietly to be found. The Lost Dutchman's mine is one of these enduring mysteries. Now imagine evening approaching once more. The sun sinks slowly behind the mountains. Shadows stretch across the desert floor. The air cools and the colors of the landscape soften into deep shades of orange and violet. The sky gradually deepens into twilight, and the first stars begin to appear, faint at first, then brighter with each passing moment. Around another quiet campfire, travelers share stories again. Someone mentions ancient Spanish mines. Another listens closely. A third asks where they might be found. No one knows, or perhaps someone does, but chooses not to say. Those unanswered questions linger in the desert air. They drift upward with the smoke of the fire, carried into the night sky where stories seem to live longest, where imagination quietly takes root. Over time, they will grow stronger. Spanish stories will blend with others, and eventually one quiet German immigrant named Jacob Waltz will step into the legend. Whether he discovered a hidden fortune or simply became part of a story that grew beyond him is a mystery that still remains. And now, we are ready to meet him. Imagine the first rays of sunlight gently touching the highest peaks of the Superstition Mountains. Once again, the desert awakens slowly. A cool breeze moves through tall saguaro cacti before the day's warmth settles across the valleys. A hawk circles high above while jackrabbits leave faint tracks in the sand that soon disappear. The mountains remain as they always have, patient, silent, unchanging. Yet the story we follow now becomes more personal. Until now, we have explored landscapes, cultures, and legends that formed over centuries. We met explorers, missionaries, and miners whose stories planted the seeds of a mystery. Now we arrive at the man most closely tied to it. His name was Jacob Waltz, or at least that is how history remembers him. One of the first mysteries begins with a simple misunderstanding. Jacob Waltz was not Dutch. He was German. Imagine Europe in the early 19th century. Germany was not yet a unified nation, but a collection of smaller states. Jacob Waltz was born in the Kingdom of Württemberg in 1810. Life was changing quickly. Wars had reshaped borders, and opportunities were uneven. Like many young men, Waltz may have looked toward America with hope. America promised land, opportunity, freedom. Whether those promises were always fulfilled is another matter, but for many, they were enough. Imagine crossing the Atlantic on a crowded ship. Weeks pass with endless water in every direction. Storms roll in. Supplies are limited. Each passenger carries quiet hopes for a new life. Eventually, Waltz arrived in the United States. Like many immigrants, he moved westward. The frontier was expanding, and gold discoveries drew thousands of hopeful prospectors. Entire towns appeared almost overnight. Stores opened, hotels filled, blacksmiths worked constantly. Then, just as quickly, many towns faded when the gold ran out. Imagine arriving in one of these settlements. Dust rises beneath horses' hooves. Wooden buildings line rough streets. Prospectors gather, sharing rumors of fortune or failure. Hope and disappointment exist side by side. Jacob Waltz entered this world. Records place him in California during the gold rush before he later settled in Arizona territory. Unlike many legends, Waltz was real. His name appears in census records, land documents, and court files. Imagine opening one of those records. There is his name, no treasure, no mystery, just an ordinary man. Before the legend, Waltz was simply an immigrant building a life. He worked hard, he mined. Sometimes he succeeded, sometimes he did not. Mining required patience and endurance. Most prospectors never found great wealth. They spent long days breaking rock under the sun, often with little reward. Yet they continued, because the next discovery might change everything. Imagine Waltz setting out before sunrise, a pickaxe, a shovel, a mule carrying supplies. He disappears into the mountains alone. Hours later, no trace remains. This image became central to the legend. Many claimed Waltz often entered the Superstition Mountains alone and returned days later with unusually rich gold ore. But historians remain cautious. While some accounts describe his gold, few explain where it came from. This uncertainty allowed speculation to grow. Imagine a neighbor watching Waltz return. His mule carries heavy bags. He looks tired but satisfied. Soon, questions begin. Where had he been? What had he found? Why always alone? In the frontier, privacy often became mystery. Prospectors guarded their discoveries carefully. Revealing a rich deposit meant inviting competition. Secrecy was practical, sometimes necessary. Imagine finding a rich gold vein. Would you tell everyone? Probably not. You would return quietly, take only what you could carry. Avoid attention. From the outside, this might seem suspicious. Over time, caution becomes mystery. This happened with Waltz. He became known as a quiet, capable miner who preferred solitude. He did not boast. He kept to himself. And the less he spoke, the more others imagine. Imagine miners gathered outside a general store. One mentions seeing Waltz return from the mountains. Another notes his heavy saddlebags. Soon, someone wonders if he has found something extraordinary. No one has proof, only observations. But stories begin to form. Eventually, people start calling him the Dutchman. The name is misleading. As we know, Waltz was German. The confusion came from the language. The German word Deutsch sounded similar to Dutch, and the mistake remained. History remembers him not as Jacob Waltz, the German miner, but as the lost Dutchman. A simple misunderstanding became legend. As years passed, Waltz lived quietly in Arizona. He farmed, he mined, he interacted with neighbors. His life appears ordinary. Nothing suggests he saw himself as part of a great mystery. Yet legends often grow around ordinary people. One rumor at a time, one unanswered question after another. Imagine Arizona in the 1870s. Phoenix is still small. Wagons move along dusty roads. Irrigation canals bring water to farmland. Beyond the settlements, vast wilderness remains. The Superstition Mountains stand unchanged. Their canyons are largely unexplored, their secrets hidden. If a rich mine existed, it could still remain undiscovered. Perhaps this is why Waltz's story gained attention. People already believed the mountains held treasure. Now there was a man who seemed to return with rich gold. The stories merged. Imagine watching Waltz disappear into the mountains at sunset. His figure grows smaller, then vanishes. No one follows. No one knows where he goes. Only the mountains know, or so the legend says. Did Jacob Waltz truly discover a hidden mine? Historians are unsure. Some believe he found a small deposit that was later lost. Others think he obtained gold elsewhere. Some believe the mine never existed at all. What we do know is this: Jacob Waltz was real. He mined in Arizona. He was known for possessing rich gold, and over time his quiet life became one of the greatest treasure legends ever told. In our next chapter, we will follow Waltz deeper into the Superstition Mountains, exploring how this mystery may or may not have begun. Imagine the soft glow of dawn spreading slowly across the Superstition Mountains once more. At first, the light is faint, just a pale shimmer along the eastern horizon. Then gradually, it grows stronger, spilling across the rugged peaks and winding valleys. The desert awakens in silence before sound returns. Gentle light washes over towering cliffs, revealing layers of ancient volcanic rock shaped by time itself. Long shadows stretch across narrow canyons, slowly retreating as the sun climbs higher. Birds begin their morning songs, their calls echoing softly through the still air. A cool breeze lingers, brushing past clusters of creosote and towering saguaros before another warm Arizona day begins. From a distance, everything appears calm, peaceful, unchanged. Nothing about the landscape suggests hidden treasure. Nothing reveals where generations of prospectors would spend decades searching, driven by hope, curiosity, and sometimes desperation. If a mine truly existed here, it was hidden with extraordinary care. Or perhaps it never existed at all. That uncertainty lies at the very heart of our story. It is what has kept the legend alive for more than a century. As we continue, we arrive at one of the most debated and mysterious chapters in the legend of Jacob Waltz. How did he discover the lost Dutchman's gold mine? The honest answer is simple: no one knows. Unlike well-documented history, this part of the story survives only through accounts told years later. Some were written decades after the events they describe. Others were passed down through memory, changing slightly with each retelling. Certain versions contradict one another entirely, while others leave out important details. Imagine trying to reconstruct a conversation from over a century ago using only fragments of memory. Each version becomes slightly different. Each storyteller adds something new or forgets something old. Instead of one clear path, we find many, like trails through the desert, each leads somewhere, but none guarantee the truth. One version suggests that Waltz learned of an older Spanish or Mexican mine hidden deep within the mountains. According to this story, knowledge of the mine passed quietly from one person to another, shared only in whispers, until it eventually reached him. Imagine an aging miner sitting inside a small adobe home, the walls thick and cool against the desert heat. He unfolds a rough, weathered map across a wooden table. His finger traces a faint line toward distant peaks barely visible through the doorway. "There," he whispers, "but tell no one." It is a powerful image, a secret passed carefully from one generation to the next. But historians have found no proof that such a meeting ever took place. No map has been verified. No written record confirms the story. Another version tells a simpler, quieter tale. Waltz discovered the mine by chance. Imagine wandering for weeks through harsh desert terrain, searching endlessly without success. The sun beats down during the day, nights grow cold and silent, supplies run low, doubt begins to settle in. Then one afternoon, something catches your eye. A strange rock formation, a glimmer of light reflecting where it should not. You approach cautiously, you strike the stone. Inside, gold gleams, not small flakes scattered in sand, but rich ore embedded deep within solid rock. Would you celebrate? Would you shout with excitement? Or would you remain silent? Most prospectors chose silence. Secrecy meant ownership. If Waltz truly found such a mine, he had every reason to keep it hidden from others. Imagine him returning quietly, taking only small amounts at a time, careful not to leave any trace behind. The desert itself becomes his ally. Wind erases footprints within hours. Flash floods reshape entire landscapes overnight. Loose rocks shift, paths disappear. Nature hides everything. Another version introduces a partner, Jacob Weiser. According to this story, the two men discovered the mine together. They worked side by side, sharing both the labor and the secret. Then tragedy struck. Some say Weiser was killed during an expedition. Others claim he vanished without explanation. A few versions suggest betrayal. Yet historians cannot confirm that Jacob Weiser even existed. No reliable records place him in Arizona at the time. Once again, the story fades into uncertainty. Imagine walking through a narrow canyon deep within the Superstition Mountains. The air grows cooler as the walls rise higher around you. Sunlight barely reaches the canyon floor. The silence feels heavier here, broken only by the occasional rustle of wind or distant bird call. Ahead, the path bends sharply. You cannot see what lies beyond. Perhaps nothing waits there. Or perhaps a hidden valley opens just out of sight. The geography of the superstitions makes such ideas believable. Caves, crevices, and hidden basins exist throughout the range. Some are nearly impossible to see unless you stand directly inside them. Others remain concealed behind natural rock formations or tucked within narrow passages. Every shadow invites speculation. Every hidden space suggests possibility. Over time, more stories began to appear. Some claimed the mine's entrance was carefully concealed behind loose rocks. Others believed powerful floods buried it beneath layers of sediment. Some suggested earthquakes sealed it forever, trapping its riches beneath tons of stone. There is little evidence supporting any of these ideas, but they reveal something important. When answers are missing, imagination fills the gaps. Imagine Waltz returning from the mountains again and again. Each time he brings back rich ore. Each time he offers no explanation. He never invites others to join him. He never reveals his route. Naturally, people begin asking questions. Where did he go? How did he find such gold? Why would he keep it secret? Questions become stories. Stories become legends. Interestingly, Waltz never appeared especially wealthy. He lived modestly. He did not display great riches. If he owned such a valuable mine, why not become rich? Perhaps the mine was small. Perhaps it produced only limited amounts of gold. Perhaps he took only what he needed to survive comfortably. Or perhaps there was no hidden mine at all. The truth remains uncertain. Imagine sitting quietly on a rocky overlook as evening settles across the desert. The mountains glow in warm shades of orange and red as the sun begins to set. Shadows stretch once more across the valleys. The air cools. The sounds of the day slowly fade. Somewhere beneath this vast landscape, the answer may exist, or it may not. The mountains offer no explanation. They do not confirm. They do not deny. They simply remain. As darkness falls, Waltz leaves the mountains once more. He carries, according to the stories, another small amount of gold. No one sees where he found it. No one follows him successfully. No one uncovers his path. The secret remains as his. For now, because secrets rarely stay hidden forever. As age and illness approach, Waltz faces a final question, a quiet, deeply personal decision. Should the secret die with him, or should he reveal it? That choice, whatever it may have been, would transform his quiet life into one of America's greatest and most enduring mysteries. Imagine the desert after a gentle winter rain. The morning air feels fresh and unusually cool, carrying the rich scent of damp soil, creosote, and distant mesquite. Tiny drops of water cling delicately to cactus spines, catching the first rays of sunlight and sparkling like scattered glass. The ground, usually dry and dusty, appears darker and softer, as if the desert itself has taken a quiet breath. In the distance, the Superstition Mountains rise beneath a pale blue sky, their rugged cliffs softened by a warm golden glow. Thin clouds drift slowly overhead, and for a brief moment the entire landscape feels calm, almost welcoming. From afar, the mountains seem inviting, beautiful, peaceful, almost gentle. But appearances, especially in the desert, can be deceptive. As our journey continues, we leave behind the story of Jacob Waltz and turn our attention to the land itself. If a hidden mine truly exists somewhere within these mountains, then understanding the terrain becomes just as important as understanding the people who searched for it. Imagine unfolding an old map. The paper is worn and fragile, its edges curled from years of handling. The ink has faded, leaving behind faint lines that once marked trails, rivers, and landmarks. At first, the map seems helpful. Familiar features appear clearly. But as your eyes move toward the heart of the Superstition Mountains, the details begin to disappear. Lines grow uncertain, paths fade. The center becomes a blank space filled with possibility and confusion. Even today, despite modern technology, this landscape remains complex and difficult to fully understand. The Superstition Mountains are not a single peak rising clearly above the desert. Instead, they form a vast wilderness, a sprawling maze of volcanic ridges, twisting canyons, steep cliffs, and hidden valleys stretching across miles of rugged terrain. From above, the mountains resemble a stone labyrinth. Every canyon leads to another. Every ridge hides what lies beyond. Every shadow suggests something unseen. Imagine standing on a rocky overlook at sunrise. The air is still cool, and the light is soft and golden. To the west, the desert stretches endlessly toward Phoenix, where distant buildings shimmer faintly in the morning haze. To the east, layers of mountains rise one behind another, fading gradually into shades of blue. Below you, narrow washes wind through clusters of mesquite and palo verde trees. Their branches twist and bend, shaped by years of wind and sun. The beauty is breathtaking, but so is the challenge. One wrong turn can lead miles off course. A path that seems clear from above may vanish entirely once you descend into the canyon below. In this landscape, nature decides the path, not the traveler. One of the most striking landmarks in the region is Weaver's Needle, a tall, narrow column of dark volcanic rock that rises sharply into the sky. Its jagged silhouette can be seen from miles away, standing like a silent sentinel over the surrounding desert. For generations, it has guided explorers. Some believe it holds clues to the lost mine. Others see it simply as a natural formation. Remarkable, but not mysterious. What we know for certain is simple. It stands as one of the most recognizable features of the Superstition Mountains. Imagine sitting quietly beneath its shadow. The rock towers above you, ancient and unmoving. Swallows dart through the air, their wings catching the light as they circle the cliffs. A gentle breeze moves across the stone, carrying faint sounds from distant valleys. It is easy to understand why stories gather here. The geology of the mountains adds another layer of complexity. Millions of years ago, powerful volcanic eruptions shaped this land. Molten rock flowed across the surface, cooling into layers of hardened stone. Over time, wind and water carved those layers into the cliffs, ridges, and canyons we see today. Even now, the landscape continues to change. Flash floods, triggered by storms miles away, can transform dry washes into rushing rivers within minutes. Trails vanish, rocks shift. Entire sections of terrain can be altered in a single season. If a mine was hidden here long ago, the land itself may have changed enough to conceal it completely. Imagine walking deeper into a narrow canyon. The walls rise higher on either side, blocking out more of the sky. The sunlight grows dimmer, filtered through layers of rock. The air becomes cooler, quieter. Then suddenly, the path splits. One direction leads north, the other turns east. Both appear equally worn. Both seem possible. Which do you choose? This simple decision has confused countless explorers over the years. Without clear markers, even experienced travelers can lose their sense of direction. Early prospectors relied heavily on memory and natural landmarks. But deserts are not static. Floods move stones. Plants grow and die. Paths fade into the earth. What once seemed obvious can become unrecognizable. Many believe this alone could explain why a mine, if it ever existed, was lost. Not deliberately hidden, but gradually forgotten as the landscape changed around it. Imagine climbing a high ridge overlooking endless valleys. From this vantage point, the terrain stretches in every direction. Canyons twist and turn like veins across the land. Shadows fill the deeper spaces, hiding details from view. Searching every corner would take years, perhaps even generations. Perhaps it already has, or perhaps one quiet canyon still holds its secret, untouched and unseen. The desert, though often described as empty, is full of life. After rain, ocotillo plants bloom with bright red flowers, attracting hummingbirds that hover and dart between blossoms. Quail move in small groups across the sand, their soft calls echoing gently. High above, bighorn sheep navigate steep cliffs with remarkable ease. Coyotes roam the open spaces. Bobcats move silently through the brush. Mountain lions pass unseen, leaving only faint tracks behind. Yet the greatest challenge here is not the wildlife. It is the environment itself. Under the midday sun, heat radiates from both sky and stone. The air shimmers. Water disappears quickly. Shade becomes rare and precious. Many early treasure hunters underestimated these conditions. Some paid a heavy price. The mountains demand respect. They always have. As evening approaches, the heat begins to soften. Long shadows stretch across the land, slowly cooling the desert floor. The cliffs glow in shifting colors, orange, then deep red, then soft purple as the sun sinks lower. Finally, darkness settles in. In these quiet moments, the legend feels especially alive. Every canyon seems filled with possibility. Every ridge invites questions. Every shadow suggests something hidden just beyond sight. Imagine Jacob Waltz standing here, looking out across the wilderness. Did he know its secrets? Did he walk these same paths with certainty? Or did he simply admire the beauty of the land, unaware of the legend that would grow around his name? We cannot know. But the setting itself feels perfectly suited for a story like this. Ancient peaks, hidden valleys, danger and beauty intertwined. A place where secrets could remain hidden for generations without ever being disturbed. Treasure hunters have searched these mountains for decades, studying maps, following clues, climbing ridges, and exploring caves. Some believed they came close. Others became lost in the maze of stone. The mountains offered no answers, only silence. As night falls once more, stars begin to fill the sky. The desert cools and the wind moves gently through the saguaros, creating a soft, whispering sound. Somewhere within this vast wilderness, if the stories are true, a hidden mind still waits, unseen, unclaimed, uncertain. In the next chapter, we will explore the clues said to lead to it, maps, symbols, and mysterious directions that have guided generations of seekers. Whether those clues are real or simply part of the legend remains a mystery of its own. Imagine the quiet stillness of the desert just before sunrise. The sky is still deep blue, but along the eastern horizon, the first faint hints of morning begin to appear. The stars slowly fade, one by one, and the cool air carries the gentle scent of desert sage and damp earth. Everything feels calm, unhurried, almost timeless. Somewhere ahead, hidden among the rugged folds of the Superstition Mountains, lies a place generations have searched for without success. Or perhaps there is no place at all, perhaps only a story. Yet stories have a quiet kind of power. They inspire people to cross deserts, climb mountains, and spend entire lifetimes chasing something they may never find. Few legends show this better than the lost Dutchman's gold mine. Imagine sitting inside a small frontier cabin in the late 19th century. An oil lamp flickers softly, casting warm shadows across rough wooden walls. Outside, horses shift quietly in the darkness, their movements barely audible in the still night air. On the table lie worn papers, rough sketches, handwritten notes, and strange symbols whose meanings have long been forgotten. At first glance, none seem remarkable, yet someone believes one of them holds the key to great wealth. Throughout the legend, hidden clues have fascinated treasure hunters. If Jacob Waltz truly knew the location of a rich mine, surely he left something behind, a map, directions, or perhaps coded instructions meant only for those who could understand them. But no single map has ever been proven real. Instead, dozens have appeared over the years. Imagine opening an old trunk in a dusty attic. Inside are yellowed papers tied carefully with fading string. Among them, a hand-drawn map of the Superstition Mountains, rough peaks, winding canyons, and perhaps an X marking a mysterious spot. It feels important, almost convincing. But is it authentic, or was it created later, shaped by imagination or even by someone hoping to profit from the legend? Most maps fail to convince historians. Some contain obvious errors. Others reference landmarks that didn't exist at the time they claim to represent. A few seem intentionally vague, encouraging endless searching rather than offering clear answers. Still, not all may be false. Some could be copies passed down through generations. Others may come from sincere but misunderstood traditions, altered slightly each time they were retold. Like the legend itself, the maps evolved. Imagine tracing one slowly with your finger, a jagged peak, a narrow canyon, a circle drawn carefully around a spring. Then a note written in faded ink. Turn toward the setting sun. It sounds clear at first, simple even, But from where? On which day? How far should you travel before turning? The more you study it, the less certain it becomes. Many clues share this quality. They seem precise until someone tries to follow them. Some believe Waltz relied not on maps at all, but on landmarks, a unique cliff, a narrow canyon, a hidden spring known only to him. Imagine walking beside him through the desert. He says very little, occasionally glancing toward distant ridges before quietly changing direction. He isn't using a map, he's using memory. Experienced prospectors often navigate it this way. They learned the land slowly, carefully, until every ridge and shadow became familiar. But such knowledge was deeply personal. What seemed obvious to one person might look completely ordinary to another. That challenge has frustrated treasure hunters for generations. One of the most famous landmarks is Weaver's Needle, a towering volcanic spire visible for miles across the desert. Imagine standing before it at sunset, glowing orange against the fading sky. It feels like a place where secrets might hide, where something important could be waiting just out of sight. Many have searched nearby. Some discovered old camps or abandoned tools. None found the mine. Geologists suggest that a visible landmark like this might actually be misleading. A hidden mine would likely be somewhere less obvious, tucked away in a place few would think to search. Would you hide a secret beside the most noticeable feature in the landscape? Or somewhere quiet, where no one would think to look? Other legends speak of carved symbols, arrows, crosses, and strange shapes said to have been left by Spanish miners long ago. Imagine finding one etched into stone. Weathered and ancient, it sparks immediate questions. Who carved it? Why? Does it point toward treasure or something far simpler, perhaps even unrelated? Archaeologists remain cautious. Such carvings can come from many sources: indigenous peoples, settlers, travelers passing through over many years. Not every mark hides a secret, yet the legend encourages belief. Some treasure hunters spent years studying these symbols, convinced they formed a hidden code waiting to be understood. Others believe many were added later, inspired by the story itself rather than by any real connection to hidden gold. The truth may lie somewhere in between. Perhaps the most intriguing clues exist only in memory. Imagine an elderly storyteller recalling tales passed down through generations of a canyon where rocks shimmer at sunset, or a hidden spring known only to a few. No map confirms it, no document records it, only memory remains. Such stories can preserve fragments of history, but they also change over time. Details shift, events blend together. After many years, truth and imagination become difficult to separate. The Lost Dutchman's legend grew in exactly this way. One person insists Waltz left written directions. Another believes he relied entirely on landmarks. A third trusts in carved symbols. A fourth quietly doubts it all. Each offers convincing ideas. None can prove them. And so the mystery continues. As the 20th century approached, the legend spread even further. Newspapers, books, and magazines introduced new clues and fresh theories. Each promised answers. None delivered. Yet every failed search only deepened the fascination. Perhaps the mine is hidden extraordinarily well. Or perhaps there was never anything to find. Imagine the sun setting behind the Superstition Mountains. The cliffs glow gold for a moment, then slowly fade into soft shades of violet and blue. The desert grows quiet once more. Somewhere beneath this peaceful landscape, according to countless maps and stories, lies the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. Yet every clue points somewhere different. Every map tells a slightly different story. Every generation reshapes the mystery in its own way. Perhaps the greatest clue is not hidden in the mountains at all, but in the legend itself. For mysteries endure not because they are solved, but because they leave just enough unanswered. And now time is quietly catching up with Jacob Waltz. The quiet miner is growing older, his health is fading, and the years of hard work have begun to show. Soon, the greatest secret of his life may leave the mountains and enter the small room where he will spend his final days. Whether he revealed the truth or carried it with him forever will become the next chapter of this enduring legend. Imagine the Arizona desert in the autumn of 1891. The fierce summer heat has finally begun to loosen its grip on the land. The air, though still warm, carries a gentler touch. Soft breezes drift through clusters of mesquite trees, stirring their thin branches and carrying with them the faint scent of dry earth and creosote. The sky stretches endlessly overhead, pale blue during the day and filled with brilliant stars at night. Across the wide valleys, the Superstition Mountains rise in dark, jagged silhouettes. Their volcanic peaks stand silent and unmoving, as they have for countless generations. To those who look upon them, they seem almost watchful, guardians of secrets buried deep within their rugged canyons. Somewhere beyond those ridges, if the stories whispered among settlers are true, lies a hidden mine, a place of extraordinary wealth, a place known only to one aging man. That man is Jacob Waltz. And for the first time in many years, he is no longer walking the narrow trails of those mountains. Imagine a quiet farmhouse on the outskirts of Phoenix. At this time, Phoenix is still a young and growing settlement. It is little more than a scattering of farms, dusty roads, and simple wooden buildings. Wagons creak slowly along the paths. Farmers rise early to tend their crops. Life moves at a steady, predictable pace, shaped by the rhythms of the land. But inside one modest home, something far more significant is unfolding. Jacob Waltz is growing old. Born in 1810, he has lived through decades of change. Now in his 80s, a remarkable age for the time, his body shows the wear of a lifetime spent in hard labor. Years of mining, farming, and surviving in the harsh desert environment have taken their toll. The man who once wandered alone through dangerous mountain terrain can no longer make those journeys. His strength is fading. In September of 1891, severe flooding struck the Salt River. What is usually a calm and manageable waterway became a powerful and destructive force. Heavy rains fell across the region, swelling the river beyond its banks. Water rushed through the land, carrying debris, damaging homes and washing away crops. Settlers struggled to protect what little they had. For someone already weakened by age, such conditions could be devastating. During this difficult time, Jacob Waltz became seriously ill. Whether his illness was caused by exposure to the harsh weather, the strain of the flooding, or simply the natural decline of age, the outcome soon became clear. He would not recover. Imagine the sound of rain falling steadily across the desert landscape. The ground, usually dry and cracked, becomes saturated. The river roars with unusual force. The sky remains gray and heavy. Inside a small home, far from the chaos outside, an old man lies quietly, his life nearing its end. During these final days, Waltz found shelter with Julia Thomas. She was a real and respected resident of Phoenix, known for running a boarding house. Her home provided a place of rest for travelers and locals alike, a simple but welcoming refuge in a growing frontier town. Inside her house, the atmosphere is calm, the air is cooler than outside. Simple wooden furniture fills the rooms. Oil lamps cast a soft, steady glow across the floors and walls. The sounds of the outside world are distant and muted. Nothing about this place suggests hidden treasure or great mystery. And yet, according to legend, this quiet home would become the setting for one of the most famous deathbed confessions in American folklore. Julia Thomas cared for Jacob Waltz during his final days. That much is certain. She provided him with shelter, comfort, and attention as his strength continued to fade. She was there when he needed help the most. Beyond that, however, the story becomes less clear. Imagine sitting beside his bed. The room is quiet. The soft flicker of lamplight casts gentle shadows across the walls. Outside, life continues as it always does. People working, wagons passing, the distant sounds of a growing town. Inside, time feels slower. The old miner lies still, aware that his life is coming to an end. With that awareness comes a decision, one that only he can make. Should he reveal his secret, or should he allow it to disappear with him forever? According to legend, Jacob Waltz chose to speak. In his final days, he is said to have described a hidden mine deep within the Superstition Mountains. He spoke of rich gold deposits, or so valuable that it seemed almost unbelievable. He mentioned landmarks, directions, and clues that only he fully understood. Julia Thomas listened carefully. Every word mattered. If what he was saying was true, he was describing a fortune beyond imagination. But there is a problem. No written record of this conversation exists. There are no notes taken at the time, no signed documents, no official statements. Everything we know about this supposed confession comes from accounts recorded later, stories passed along, remembered and retold, and as with many such stories, the details are not always consistent. Some versions claim that Waltz gave clear and precise directions, describing exactly how to find the mine. Others suggest that his words were vague, confusing, or incomplete. Imagine trying to follow instructions like, turn where the shadow falls. Look for the spring beneath the ledge. To the man who knew the land intimately, such directions might have made perfect sense. But to anyone else, they could be nearly impossible to interpret. Even the smallest misunderstanding, a misremembered landmark, a slightly altered phrase, could lead a searcher miles away from the intended location. Memory itself is not always reliable. Over time, details can shift, words can change, stories can grow. According to some accounts, Waltz showed Julia pieces of rich gold ore during his final days. These samples, if they truly existed, would have been powerful evidence. But even here, uncertainty remains. Where did the gold come from? Some experts who have examined similar samples believe they match known deposits found in Arizona. Others argue that the gold could have originated elsewhere. Without clear documentation, the question remains unanswered. The gold, like the story itself, adds another layer to the mystery. Jacob Waltz died on October 25, 1891. His life had spanned a remarkable period in American history, from the early years of the nation to the rapid expansion of the western frontier. He had lived through change, hardship, and opportunity, and in the end, he left behind more questions than answers. After his death, people began to wonder, did he truly discover a hidden mine? Had he carried the secret of immense wealth all those years? Or had the story grown larger than the truth itself? No one could say for certain, but Julia Thomas believed him. She believed that the mine was real, and she decided to search for it. Gathering supplies and organizing an expedition, she prepared to venture into the Superstition Mountains. It would not be an easy journey. The terrain was harsh, the paths uncertain, and the dangers very real. Still, hope can be a powerful motivator. Imagine setting out at sunrise. The desert is quiet. The air is cool. The mountains rise ahead, filled with mystery and possibility. Day after day, the search continues. Canyon after canyon is explored. Landmarks are studied, clues are considered and reconsidered, but the mine remains hidden. Eventually, Julia Thomas returns without success. For many, that might have been the end of the story, but instead it was only the beginning. News of Jacob Waltz's story began to spread. Newspapers picked it up, drawn by the intrigue of a hidden treasure and a dying man's secret. Writers added details, sometimes embellishing the tale to make it even more compelling. The story grew. Soon, the legend of the lost Dutchman's gold mine became known far beyond Arizona. It captured the imagination of people across the country. Jacob Waltz, once a quiet and private miner, became something else entirely. He became a legend. As night falls over the Superstition Mountains, his voice is gone. If he knew the truth, it now lives only in stories passed from one generation to the next. The mountains remain as they always have, silent, unmoving, and mysterious. They offer no answers, no confirmation, no denial, only the quiet presence of ancient stone beneath the stars. And from this moment forward, many will believe that somewhere within those rugged peaks, a great treasure still waits to be found, and some will spend their lives searching for it. Imagine the first pale light of morning stretching slowly across the Superstition Mountains. The desert is quiet, almost perfectly still. A thin veil of mist lingers in the valleys, drifting gently between the rugged slopes while the highest peaks catch the earliest rays of sunlight. The volcanic cliffs glow softly, their ancient surfaces warming after the cool desert night. One by one, birds begin to awaken, their calls echoing faintly across the open landscape. Nothing in this peaceful scene reveals how many dreams have been carried into these mountains, or how many were quietly left behind. By the time Jacob Waltz passed away in 1891, the story of his hidden mine was beginning to spread beyond Arizona. At first, few people paid much attention. Frontier communities were filled with remarkable tales, stories of lost fortunes, hidden valleys, and mysterious discoveries, many of which faded quickly with time. But this story was different. It lingered, it felt possible. Jacob Waltz had been a real man. He had possessed unusually rich gold. He had spent years traveling alone into the mountains, returning with ore that few could explain. And according to the legend, he had spoken of a secret mine before his death. Whether every detail was true mattered less than one simple, powerful possibility. What if it was? Imagine reading a newspaper in the late 19th century. Among reports of expanding railroads, growing cities, and distant events, you come across a small article. It tells of a miner who died without revealing the location of a hidden gold deposit somewhere in the Arizona wilderness. You finish reading, you fold the paper, and one quiet thought remains. Someone will find that mine. Why not me? That single question inspired thousands of journeys. Imagine a group of treasure hunters preparing around the year 1900. Their supplies are carefully arranged beside sturdy horses, canvas tents, mining tools, water barrels, maps, and provisions for weeks in the wilderness. Every item has been chosen with care. Every detail matters. The mood is hopeful. Each person believes they hold a clue others have overlooked. Confidence can be powerful. It can also be misleading. As they enter the mountains, the journey begins gently. Trails wind through open valleys dotted with towering saguaros. The air is clear. The path seems manageable. Then slowly, the terrain begins to change. Paths narrow, loose rocks shift beneath each step. Canyons force unexpected detours. Water becomes harder to find. The mountains begin to reveal their true nature. Many expected to search for only a few days. Some remained for weeks. Others returned again and again, year after year. Imagine a prospector sitting beside a small campfire, writing in a worn notebook. Explored Western Canyon. No sign of workings. Spring found beneath cliff. Each entry is brief. Each day ends with quiet hope. Perhaps tomorrow will be different. Throughout the early 20th century, countless expeditions entered these mountains. Some were experienced miners, guided by knowledge of geology and terrain. Others were dreamers, drawn by the promise of discovery. Together, they transformed the lost Dutchman's mine into one of America's greatest treasure hunts. Imagine coming across an abandoned campsite, a circle of stones where a fire once burned, a rusted tin can half buried in the sand, an old horseshoe catching the light. Who stayed here? How long did they search? Did they leave disappointed or simply move on to another canyon? The desert offers no answers. It slowly erases every trace. Wind covers footprints. Rain washes away trails. Time becomes another silent guardian of the mystery. Among the many who searched was a man named Adolf Ruth. It is the year 1931. He is 66 years old. Despite his age, he is determined. He believes he possesses a map that will lead him directly to the mine. Whether the map was genuine remains uncertain, but his belief was strong. He entered the mountains with quiet determination. Days passed, then weeks. He did not return. Months later, his remains were discovered. Nearby lay fragments of his map. Some believed he had simply fallen victim to the harsh desert environment. Others suspected something more mysterious. The story deepened. Newspapers carried the headline, "A treasure hunter dies seeking lost mine." Public fascination grew even stronger. If people were willing to risk their lives searching, perhaps the treasure truly existed. Each tragedy seemed to add another layer to the legend. Imagine another expedition years later. A campfire flickers beneath a sky filled with stars. Stories are shared of Jacob Waltz, of Julia Thomas, of Adolf Ruth. History and legend begin to blend together. Details shift, memories change, the story grows. Some searchers relied on careful study of the land. Others followed old maps or instinct. Imagine two prospectors standing in the same canyon. One carries detailed geological notes. The other holds a hand-drawn map passed down through stories. Both believe they are close. Both are guided by hope. Hope has always been the most valuable thing carried into these mountains. It weighs nothing, yet it drives extraordinary journeys. Around countless campfires, the same questions were asked again and again. What if we're close? What if the landscape has changed? What if no one has searched here before? The mountains never answered. By the middle of the 20th century, the legend had spread far beyond Arizona. Books, magazines, radio programs, and eventually television carried the story across the country and beyond. Each generation discovered it in its own way. Each believed it might finally uncover the truth. Imagine standing on a high overlook at sunset. Below you stretches a vast maze of ridges, valleys, and hidden canyons. Somewhere within this landscape, Jacob Waltz once walked. Somewhere, Adolf Ruth searched. Perhaps their paths crossed. Perhaps they stood in the same places, separated only by time. Or perhaps they never came close at all. The mountains remain silent. As evening settles in, long shadows fill the valleys. The desert grows still once more. It becomes easier to understand why so many return, not only for gold, but for the chance to answer an unfinished question. Yet the greatest challenge was not always failure. Sometimes it was survival. Beyond the legend lies a harsher reality: dangerous terrain, sudden storms, extreme heat, unpredictable conditions, disappearances that remain unexplained. The Superstition Mountains are as unforgiving as they are beautiful, and that is where our journey continues next. Imagine the Superstition Mountains at midday. The gentle coolness of morning has long since faded, replaced by the full intensity of the Arizona sun. Heat rises steadily from the volcanic rocks in shimmering waves. bending the air so that distant cliffs appear to ripple like reflections on water. The sky stretches endlessly above, a deep and cloudless blue. The air feels heavy and still. Even the birds have retreated. They rest quietly in the shade of mesquite trees and beneath the towering arms of ancient saguaros, conserving their energy until the sun begins to fall again. From afar, the mountains remain breathtaking. Their jagged silhouettes rise sharply against the horizon, painted in shades of rust, gold, and shadow. They seem almost inviting from a distance, like a place filled with quiet beauty and hidden secrets. Up close, they become something else entirely. As our story continues, we gently set aside thoughts of treasure and gold. Instead, we turn our attention to the land itself, the true heart of this mystery. Long before legends of curses, long before newspaper headlines and whispered rumors, the Superstition Mountains were already a place of challenge and danger. Imagine beginning a hike at sunrise. The air is cool and refreshing. A soft breeze moves through the desert, carrying the faint scent of creosote. The trail ahead appears clear and manageable. You feel confident, prepared. You carry what seems like enough water, perhaps even more than enough. At first, the journey feels easy. Your steps are steady. The rising sun casts long shadows across the desert floor. The mountains glow softly in the early light, but time passes. The sun climbs higher. The shadows shrink. The air grows warmer, then hotter. You begin to drink more water than you expected. A sip becomes several. Several become frequent pauses. The shade that once offered relief becomes harder to find. The open desert stretches ahead, exposed and unforgiving. Each step grows heavier. Your pace slows. The desert does not warn you. It does not shout or signal danger. It simply asks for more. More energy, more water, more endurance. Until quietly and without drama, exhaustion begins to settle in. This is the true challenge of the Sonoran Desert. Unlike towering snowy peaks or violent storms, its dangers are subtle. There are no obvious signs of immediate threat. The sky remains clear, the path remains visible, and yet survival depends entirely on preparation. Water is everything. Imagine starting your journey with 2 full canteens at dawn. They feel reassuring in your pack, heavy but comforting. By midday, one is already empty. The second grows lighter with each passing hour. You begin to measure each sip carefully. Miles still stretch ahead. Distances in the desert can be deceiving. What appears close may take hours to reach. A ridge that seems just beyond the next rise reveals another ridge behind it, and another, and another. The landscape unfolds endlessly. Many have learned this lesson too late. Climb a ridge for a better view, only to discover that the horizon continues without end. More valleys, more ridges, more uncertainty. It becomes easy to lose direction. Before modern navigation tools, this happened often. A traveler might unknowingly walk in circles, guided only by instinct and shifting landmarks. The desert offers few clear reference points. Everything begins to look the same. Now imagine something else. Clouds begin to gather in the distance. At first they seem harmless, a rare break from the endless blue sky. But in the desert, weather can change quickly. A storm forms miles away. Rain begins to fall, not where you stand, but somewhere beyond the ridges. Dry washes, which moments ago appeared harmless and empty, suddenly awaken. A distant sound begins to grow. At first it is faint, almost unnoticeable, then louder, a low rumbling roar. Before there is time to react, a wall of muddy water rushes forward. Flash floods arrive without warning. They move with incredible force, carrying rocks, branches, and debris. They reshape the land in moments. Trails vanish, paths disappear, landmarks shift or are erased entirely. If Jacob Waltz once knew a precise route, nature may have quietly erased it long ago. As the legend of the lost Dutchman grew, so too did darker stories. Some believed the mountains were cursed. They spoke of accidents, disappearances, unexplained misfortune. Around campfires, these stories spread easily. Strange lights seen flickering in the distance. Unfamiliar sounds echoing through narrow canyons. Voices carried faintly by the wind. Yet wilderness itself can create such illusions. Wind moves through rock formations, producing eerie echoes. Moonlight transforms familiar shapes into something unfamiliar. Silence sharpens the imagination. In such an environment, even ordinary sounds can feel mysterious. Most historians and scientists see no curse here, only real natural dangers: heat, dehydration, disorientation, isolation. Still, legends serve an important purpose. They remind people to respect the land. The mountains don't like greedy men. It is a simple phrase, easy to remember, easy to pass along, and perhaps in its own way it has helped keep people cautious. As time passed, reports of missing treasure hunters began to appear. Some returned safely, though, often shaken by their experience. Some required rescue, and a few never returned at all. Each story added another layer to the legend, not because of confirmed evidence, but because of the power of imagination. The mountains create isolation quickly. Just a few miles into the wilderness, the outside world begins to fade. No distant traffic, no voices, no signs of modern life, only wind, stone, and silence. A century ago, this isolation was even more profound. There were no rescue teams, no radios, no satellite communication. A single mistake, an injury, a wrong turn, a miscalculation could become fatal. And yet, despite all of this, people continued to come, drawn by hope, by curiosity, by the possibility that something extraordinary might still be hidden among the rocks. Imagine evening slowly settling over the desert. The harsh brightness of the day softens into warm shades of orange and gold. Shadows stretch long across the valleys. The air cools. A small fire flickers gently. Above, the sky transforms. The Milky Way stretches across the darkness, brilliant and endless. The desert, once harsh and demanding, now feels peaceful, almost timeless. In moments like this, something becomes clear. The mountains offer more than gold. They offer stillness. They offer perspective. Their beauty lingers long after the journey ends. Their silence speaks in ways words cannot. Their mystery endures. Perhaps that is their true power. They remind us how small we are and how vast the world remains. As night deepens, the fire slowly fades. The stars grow brighter. The desert settles into quiet rest. Somewhere beyond the ridges, the mystery remains, unchanged, unanswered, waiting. But now, a new approach begins. Science, technology, careful study. Can evidence succeed where legend has not? That question awaits in the next chapter. Imagine the Superstition Mountains on a crisp spring morning today. The air is cool and fresh, carrying the faint scent of desert blossoms drifting gently across the landscape. Sunlight slowly spreads across the volcanic peaks just as it did centuries ago, touching each ridge and canyon with a soft golden glow. The light lingers on towering saguaros, their arms raised silently toward the sky, and dances across clusters of tiny wildflowers that bloom briefly before the desert heat returns. A hawk glides effortlessly overhead, riding invisible currents of warm air, its shadow passing quietly over the rocky ground below. In the distance, A few hikers begin their journeys along winding trails, their footsteps soft and unhurried, blending into the natural rhythm of the desert. At first glance, very little has changed. The mountains remain ancient. The desert remains patient. The mystery remains unsolved. And yet, everything surrounding the search has transformed. Modern trailheads now welcome visitors with detailed maps, clearly marked routes, and carefully placed safety warnings. Informational signs explain the terrain, the wildlife, and the risks of the desert environment. Park rangers monitor conditions, offering guidance, assistance, and quiet reminders of how quickly the landscape can become dangerous. Satellite communication now reaches places that were once completely isolated, where early explorers had only instinct, experience, and determination to rely on. Weather forecasts can predict sudden storms. Emergency services can respond more quickly than ever before. And still, no one has found the lost Dutchman's gold mine. Imagine a modern explorer preparing for the journey. She carefully checks her equipment before setting out. She carries a GPS device, digital maps stored on her phone, emergency supplies, and lightweight gear designed for survival in harsh conditions. Her backpack is efficient, organized, and far more advanced than anything early prospectors could have imagined. She studies the terrain before leaving, plans her route, and informs others of her destination. Every step is calculated, every risk considered, yet the mountain remains the same. Technology has improved, nature has not. Even with precise coordinates and advanced tools, every canyon demands effort. Every steep climb requires strength and patience. The desert still tests those who enter it, asking the same quiet question it has always asked: are you prepared? Today's explorers approach the legend in many different ways. Some still search for treasure, driven by the same hope that inspired prospectors more than a century ago. They follow old maps, study rumored landmarks, and imagine that perhaps they will be the ones to finally uncover what others could not. Others seek historical truth, hoping to uncover facts hidden within old records and forgotten accounts. They examine documents, compare stories, and attempt to separate reality from myth. Many come simply to experience the beauty of the wilderness, drawn by the story, but staying for the landscape itself. For them, the journey becomes less about discovery and more about appreciation. A geologist might walk these trails not in search of gold, but in search of understanding. She studies the volcanic rock formations, examining layers shaped by ancient eruptions that occurred millions of years ago. She observes how minerals formed under intense heat and pressure, and considers whether such a rich deposit of gold could realistically exist here. Arizona is known for its mineral wealth, but whether an undiscovered mine lies hidden within these mountains remains uncertain. Others focus on preserving history. Photographers capture the changing light across the peaks, waiting patiently for the perfect moment when shadow and color align. Archaeologists and historians document old campsites, trails, and artifacts left behind by earlier explorers. Each discovery adds a small piece to a much larger puzzle, even if the full picture remains incomplete. Imagine stumbling upon the remains of an old campsite deep within a narrow canyon. Rusted tools lie scattered among the rocks, worn by time and weather. A simple stone fireplace sits quietly, untouched for decades. Perhaps a fragment of metal glints faintly in the sunlight. Perhaps a weathered piece of cloth remains caught between stones. Someone once rested here after a long day of searching. Was it an ordinary miner, or someone chasing the legend? We may never know. Some researchers search not the desert, but the past itself. They spend hours in archives, carefully studying old records, letters, and documents. They examine census data, land claims, and newspaper articles from the 19th century. These sources confirm that Jacob Waltz was a real person and that he possessed unusually rich gold during his lifetime. Beyond that, the mystery deepens. Even modern tools like metal detectors and ground surveys uncover only fragments, old equipment, forgotten traces of past searches, small reminders of those who came before. Each discovery hints at effort, at hope, at determination. Meanwhile, the legend continues to grow in the digital world, where people share theories, maps, and ideas across online communities. Discussions unfold across forums and videos, each offering new interpretations, new possibilities, and new questions. Technology has changed, curiosity has not. Today, many visitors come simply to hike, photograph, and enjoy the landscape. The legend may have drawn them here, but the mountains themselves leave the lasting impression. Standing at a scenic overlook, watching the desert glow in the soft light of evening, something becomes clear. Even if every canyon were explored, every trail followed, every record examined, some mysteries would remain. Time erases evidence. Floods reshape the land. Wind smooths away footprints. Memories fade. History leaves only fragments behind. As night slowly falls, the mountains return to silence beneath the same stars that once guided Jacob Waltz. The sky fills with countless points of light, stretching endlessly above the quiet desert. The air cools, and the sounds of the day fade into stillness. Modern explorers leave with better tools, greater knowledge, and safer journeys. But often, they leave with the same result: questions. Because despite all our progress, all our technology, and all our careful searching, the lost Dutchman's gold mine remains what it has always been: a mystery waiting patiently beneath the Arizona sky. And perhaps that is part of its enduring power. It reminds us that not everything can be mapped, measured, or explained. Some stories continue not because they are solved, but because they invite us to keep wondering. And as the desert settles into quiet darkness, the mountains stand unchanged, holding their secrets as they always have, silent, patient, and timeless. In our next chapter, we will look at these mountains through the lens of geology, asking whether science supports the possibility of such a hidden treasure or quietly challenges the legend itself. Imagine arriving in the Superstition Mountains just after sunrise, when the desert is still cool and the light is soft and golden, stretching gently across the rugged landscape. You carry no treasure map in your backpack, no faded journal filled with cryptic notes, no mysterious symbols carved into stone, no whispered directions passed down through generations. Instead, your tools are simple, practical, and grounded in science. A rock hammer rests at your side. A magnifying glass hangs from your neck. A well-worn notebook waits to record observations. And most importantly, you carry years of geological knowledge shaped by study, patience, and careful observation. You are not searching for legends. You are searching for evidence. The mountains before you are still magnificent, just as they have always been. Golden sunlight spreads slowly across Weaver's Needle, revealing its towering volcanic form in remarkable detail. The rock glows with warm shades of orange and red, each layer telling a story far older than any human memory. Lizards emerge from their hiding places, stretching themselves across sun-warmed stones. A cactus wren hops quietly between branches, its small movements barely disturbing the stillness of the morning. A cool breeze moves gently through the canyons, carrying the faint scent of desert plants before the heat of the day begins to rise. To most visitors, the cliffs simply look ancient, impressive, perhaps even mysterious. But to a geologist, they are something more. They are a record, a story written not in words but in stone. Imagine placing your hand on the rough surface of volcanic rock, It feels solid, unmoving, permanent. Yet its journey began long before humans existed, long before the first stories were told, long before the idea of hidden treasure ever entered the human imagination. Roughly 20 million years ago, this region was shaped by powerful volcanic activity. The land was alive with fire. Lava flowed across the surface, spreading slowly but relentlessly. Ash filled the sky, settling over the landscape in thick layers. Over time, these materials cooled and hardened, forming the volcanic rock that now defines the Superstition Mountains. Layer upon layer, built up over thousands, then millions of years. Each eruption added another chapter. Each cooling flow preserved a moment in time. Then came the long, patient work of change. Wind began to shape the surface. Rain carved small channels that slowly deepened into canyons. Flash floods rushed through valleys, carrying away loose rock and sediment. Temperature shifts caused cracks to form and widen. Over millions of years, these forces transformed the landscape into what we see today. Nature works patiently. It does not rush. It does not follow human timelines. It shapes the world slowly, steadily, and without pause. Gold forms differently. Its story begins deep underground, far from the surface where we stand. Hot, mineral-rich water moves through cracks and fractures in the rock. These fluids carry dissolved minerals, including quartz and tiny particles of gold. As the water cools, the minerals begin to settle. Quartz forms solid veins within the rock. Gold becomes trapped within those veins, sometimes in tiny amounts, sometimes in more concentrated deposits. This process takes thousands, even millions of years. It is quiet, invisible, gradual. Sometimes the result is barely noticeable, a few scattered flakes, a faint shimmer in a stream. Other times, under the right conditions, richer deposits can form, but even then, they are rarely as large or as easily accessible as legends might suggest. So what about the Superstition Mountains? Geologists agree that the region can contain gold. Small amounts have been found in nearby areas. Arizona itself is known for its mineral wealth, with a long history of mining that stretches back generations. But the real question is not whether gold exists here, it is how much. Finding a few flakes in a stream is very different from discovering a rich, hidden vein capable of producing large quantities of gold. The legend of the lost Dutchman's mine suggests something far more valuable, a deposit so rich that it could change a person's life, a secret so significant that it was worth hiding. Could such a deposit exist? Yes. Geology does not rule it out entirely. Is it likely? Not especially. Imagine a geologist standing near the base of Weaver's Needle, studying the cliffs with careful attention. Instead of searching for hidden symbols or secret entrances, she examines the rock itself. She looks for fractures where mineral-rich fluids may have once flowed. She studies fault lines that could have created pathways for gold-bearing solutions. She observes the composition of the rock, noting where quartz veins appear and how they are distributed. Science asks a different kind of question, not where the mine is hidden, but where gold would naturally form. Some experts suggest that if Jacob Waltz did find gold, it may not have been a large, extensive mine at all. Instead, it could have been a small but unusually rich pocket, a narrow vein, a localized deposit, something valuable but limited. Such a discovery could easily be misunderstood or exaggerated over time. And in a landscape as rugged and complex as the Superstition Mountains, a small deposit could be incredibly difficult to relocate. Nature does not preserve landmarks in the way humans do. Floods can reshape entire valleys. Rockfalls can bury entrances. Erosion can alter familiar features until they become unrecognizable. A narrow canyon might look entirely different after a single powerful storm. A hidden opening could disappear beneath layers of debris. Over decades, Even well-known locations can change. Over a century, they can vanish completely. Still, many scientists remain cautious. After more than 100 years of searching, using increasingly advanced tools and detailed mapping, no large hidden mine has been confirmed. Modern technology allows researchers to study the terrain with remarkable precision. Satellite imagery reveals patterns invisible from the ground. Geological surveys provide detailed information about rock formations and mineral distribution. And yet, no discovery has definitively matched the legend. This leads many experts to a careful conclusion. A massive hidden gold mine in the Superstition Mountains seems unlikely. Not impossible, just unlikely. Science rarely deals in absolute certainty. Instead, it works with probabilities. Based on the available evidence, the existence of a large, undiscovered mine is not strongly supported, but the possibility of a smaller deposit cannot be completely dismissed. Imagine sitting quietly beside a cliff as the sunlight shifts throughout the day. Morning light reveals fine details in the rock. Afternoon light deepens the shadows, emphasizing the rugged texture of the landscape. Each layer you see represents a moment in geological time, millions of years compressed into visible form. Compared to that vast timeline, human stories are brief. A century of searching, a lifetime of speculation, a handful of generations passing down a legend. All of it is only a small moment in the life of the mountains. Perhaps that is the real perspective to consider. Whether the lost Dutchman's mine exists or not, the mountains themselves are the true treasure. They hold millions of years of history. They reveal the processes that shape our planet. They inspire both scientific curiosity and human imagination. Imagine visiting a museum where small pieces of gold rest quietly in glass cases. They may seem modest compared to the grand stories of hidden riches. Yet when you understand how they formed, how long it took, and how rare the conditions must be, they become something extraordinary, not because of their size, but because of their story. As evening approaches, the mountains begin to change once more. The harsh brightness of midday softens into warm, gentle light. Shadows stretch across the valleys. The cliffs glow briefly before fading into deeper shades of red and purple. Eventually, the sun slips below the horizon. The desert cools. The sky darkens. Stars begin to appear. The mountains remain unchanged by the stories told about them. They do not confirm the legend. They do not deny it. They simply exist. Whether Jacob Waltz discovered a hidden deposit, or whether his story grew slowly into something larger than reality, the mountains continue telling their own story. A story written in stone, a story shaped by time, a story that does not depend on treasure to be meaningful. And as our journey nears its end, one quiet question remains. How much of the lost Dutchman's legend is history, and how much is imagination? That is where we will wander next. Imagine the desert in the quiet moments after sunset. The last traces of golden light have disappeared beyond the western horizon, leaving the Superstition Mountains draped in soft shades of blue and violet. One by one, the first stars appear overhead, until the entire sky is filled with countless points of light. The mountains have grown silent once more. No prospectors strike their picks against stone. No wagons creak along dusty trails. No voices echo through the canyons. Only the gentle breeze moves through the saguaros, carrying with it stories that have lingered here for more than a century. As our journey slowly approaches its end, we arrive at perhaps the most fascinating part of the mystery, not where the mine might be, but what we can honestly say is true. Throughout this story, we have walked carefully between documented history and enduring legend. Now let us pause beside a quiet desert campfire and gently separate one from the other. Imagine placing two small wooden boxes on the ground before you. One is labeled History. The other is labeled legend. As we examine each piece of the story, we will decide where it belongs. Some fit neatly, others rest somewhere between the two. Let us begin with what historians know. Jacob Waltz was real. This is not speculation. Government records, census documents, land transactions, and legal papers all confirm that he lived in Arizona during the 19th century. He immigrated from Germany. He worked as both a miner and a farmer. He lived near Phoenix during his later years. These facts are well established. Into the box marked history they go. Next comes another important question. Did Jacob Waltz possess unusually rich gold? Here, the answer appears to be probably yes. Several historical accounts written by people who knew Waltz describe him selling or displaying remarkably rich gold ore. Although not every account can be independently verified, enough contemporary references exist to make this claim reasonably believable. Exactly where that gold originated, that is another matter entirely. Imagine holding a small piece of glittering quartz, threaded with veins of gold. The rock itself cannot tell you where it was found, it simply exists. Without reliable documentation tracing its origin, certainty disappears. So the gold itself rests somewhere between our two boxes, not entirely history, not entirely legend. Now consider the famous hidden mine. Did Jacob Waltz discover one? Here, historians become much more cautious. No verified mining claim identifies such a location. No surviving journal written by Waltz describes it. No official records confirm the existence of an extraordinarily rich mine, hidden within the Superstition Mountains. More than a century of searching has produced no universally accepted discovery. That does not necessarily prove the mine never existed. History rarely proves negatives. Instead, historians simply acknowledge the evidence available. At present, it remains insufficient. Imagine searching through thousands of old documents preserved inside libraries and archives, every letter, every newspaper, every property record, every court case. If somewhere among those pages a forgotten document clearly described Waltz's mine, the mystery might finally be solved. Researchers have searched for exactly that. So far, nothing definitive has appeared. Now let us consider Julia Thomas. Did Jacob Waltz reveal the secret to her before he died? This question occupies one of the most intriguing spaces within the legend. We know Julia Thomas was a real person. We know she cared for Waltz during his final illness. We know she later searched for the mine. Those facts belong comfortably within history. What remains uncertain is the conversation itself. No written record survives from Waltz, no signed statement, no detailed transcript recorded at the time. Everything comes from later recollections. Perhaps he spoke openly, perhaps only briefly, perhaps not at all. The mountains keep that answer hidden. Imagine sitting quietly beside Waltz's bedside during those final days. The room is dimly lit. Outside, Phoenix settles into another peaceful evening. Only two people hear the conversation. When one passes away, and the other later recounts the story from memory, absolute certainty becomes impossible. Such moments often shape history. Many famous stories depend upon memories recorded years later. Some prove remarkably accurate, others change with every retelling. The Lost Dutchman's legend is no exception. Now let us open the second box, the one marked legend. Inside we find mysterious maps, secret codes, hidden symbols carved into ancient rocks, Spanish treasure routes passed quietly from generation to generation, guardian spirits protecting buried gold, curses awaiting those driven by greed. These stories have become inseparable from the legend, yet historians have found little reliable evidence supporting them. That does not make them unimportant. Far from it. Legends often reveal something deeper than literal facts. They reveal what people believe, what they fear, what they hope. Imagine listening to an old storyteller beneath a sky filled with stars. He knows perfectly well that every detail may not be historically accurate. That is not the point. His purpose is different. He is preserving wonder, passing curiosity from one generation to the next, keeping alive a mystery that invites every listener to imagine what might still be possible. Human beings have always loved stories like these. Every culture possesses its own lost treasures, forgotten cities, hidden kingdoms, buried fortunes, sacred relics waiting to be rediscovered. The Lost Dutchman's gold mine joins a remarkably long tradition. Perhaps that explains why the legend feels strangely familiar, even to those hearing it for the very first time. Imagine asking 3 different people whether the Lost Dutchman's mine exists. A geologist smiles thoughtfully. "It is possible," she says, "but the evidence remains limited." A historian nods politely. "The documented facts are fascinating enough," he replies. "The legend grew gradually around them." A treasure hunter gazes toward the mountains. "I believe it's still there," he says quietly. "We simply haven't looked in the right place." Which answer is correct? Perhaps each contains part of the truth. Not because all conclusions are equally supported by evidence, but because each reflects a different way of understanding the same mystery. Science seeks explanations. History seeks documentation. Legends seek meaning. The Lost Dutchman's story somehow manages to satisfy all 3. Imagine walking one final time through a narrow canyon at twilight. The cliffs glow softly beneath the fading light. A cool breeze slips quietly through the mesquite trees. Your footsteps echo gently against volcanic stone. Ahead, the canyon bends sharply. You cannot see what lies beyond. For a brief moment, your imagination whispers, "Perhaps, just beyond that bend, the mine waits exactly where it has always been." Then another thought follows. Perhaps the greatest treasure was never hidden beneath the earth at all. Perhaps it has always been the story itself. Think of everything this legend has inspired. Historians have spent decades studying old records. Geologists have explored remarkable landscapes. Writers have filled books with competing theories. Families have shared stories across generations. Thousands of hikers have discovered the beauty of the Superstition Mountains because they first heard whispers of a lost mine. The legend has already produced something valuable, not gold, curiosity. Imagine a child reading about Jacob Waltz for the first time. Years later, that curiosity becomes a love of history, or geology, or archaeology. One mystery leads to a lifetime of learning. In that sense, perhaps the Lost Dutchman's mine has been enriching people all along, just not in the way anyone expected. As darkness fully settles across the desert, the stars seem brighter than ever. The mountains stand quietly beneath them, unchanged by all the questions humans have asked over the generations. They offer no confirmation, no denial, only silence. And perhaps that silence is exactly why the legend has survived. Some mysteries are not remembered because they are solved. They are remembered because they continue inviting us to wonder whether Jacob Waltz truly carried the greatest secret in the American West, or whether an ordinary miner slowly became the center of an extraordinary legend. His story has become part of the history of the Southwest, not because every detail can be proven, but because the search itself has become a chapter of history. And as our peaceful journey nears its final destination, only one question remains. Why, after more than a century of unanswered questions, do people still find themselves drawn toward these silent mountains, hoping that one more sunrise might finally reveal what countless others could not? That final reflection awaits us beneath tomorrow's gentle desert dawn. Imagine the first light of dawn returning to the Superstition Mountains one final time. The eastern horizon glows with soft shades of rose and gold. Shadows slowly retreat from the valleys, revealing familiar cliffs winding washes and forests of towering saguaros. A gentle breeze stirs the creosote bushes, carrying the fresh scent of the desert after a cool night. Nothing about the landscape announces that it is home to one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. The mountains simply awaken, as they always have, as they always will. By now we have walked together through centuries of history. We have met indigenous peoples whose connection to this land stretches back thousands of years. We have followed Spanish explorers searching for new frontiers. We have listened to the quiet life of Jacob Waltz, whose name became inseparable from an enduring legend. We have climbed volcanic ridges, examined geological evidence, and separated documented history from cherished folklore. Yet one question still lingers, like the morning mist. Why does this story refuse to fade away? After all, more than 100 years have passed. Entire generations have come and gone. Technology has transformed the world beyond anything Jacob Waltz could have imagined. People have photographed the mountains from airplanes, surveyed them with satellites, mapped nearly every canyon, studied countless historical records, and still, the Lost Dutchman's gold mine continues to capture imaginations. Imagine opening a bookstore almost anywhere in America. Walk quietly through the history section. Soon you notice books about famous mysteries, lost civilizations, forgotten shipwrecks, ancient treasures. Somewhere among them, very often, rests a volume dedicated to the Superstition Mountains. Not because anyone has solved the mystery, but because they have not. Unanswered questions possess remarkable endurance. Imagine sitting beside a fireplace on a quiet winter evening. A grandparent begins telling stories from long ago. Perhaps they speak of pioneers crossing the frontier. Perhaps they remember hearing tales of hidden gold somewhere in Arizona. A child listens carefully. Years later, that child becomes the storyteller. The legend continues, not through official documents, not through government records, but through ordinary conversations shared across generations. Stories survive because people enjoy telling them. The Lost Dutchman's legend has always been an especially good story. It contains all the elements people naturally remember: a quiet and mysterious miner, a secret carried to the grave, ancient mountains filled with hidden canyons, treasure waiting to be discovered, danger, adventure, hope. Every great legend contains a careful balance between certainty and mystery. Too many confirmed facts, and curiosity disappears. Too much fantasy, and belief fades. The Lost Dutchman story rests comfortably between those two extremes. Enough history exists to make it feel possible. Enough mystery remains to keep it alive. Imagine another visitor arriving at the Superstition Mountains today. Unlike many earlier treasure hunters, she has no intention of searching for gold. She unfolds a small blanket beneath a saguaro cactus and simply watches the sunrise. Birdsong echoes across the desert. A jackrabbit pauses briefly before disappearing into the brush. The changing light transforms ordinary rock into glowing shades of orange and crimson. She came because she had heard the story. The legend brought her here, but the landscape itself became the true reward. This may be one of the most remarkable legacies of the Lost Dutchman's mine. It has introduced millions of people to the beauty of the Sonoran Desert. Many visitors arrive searching for mystery. They leave remembering the mountains. Imagine speaking with a park ranger after a long day's hike. Over the years, the ranger has met people from nearly every corner of the world. Some arrive carrying old treasure maps, folded carefully inside plastic sleeves. Others simply ask where Jacob Waltz might have walked. Many are disappointed to learn that no one knows for certain, yet very few leave disappointed by the mountains themselves. The scenery has a quiet way of exceeding expectations. even without hidden gold. Legends often become ambassadors for the places they inhabit. The mystery encourages people to visit. The landscape convinces them to stay. Imagine the countless photographers who have waited patiently for sunset at Weaver's Needle. They adjust their cameras as warm light slowly spreads across the volcanic spire. No treasure appears, no secret entrance opens, yet they return home carrying something equally valuable, a memory, a photograph, a peaceful moment that cannot be measured in ounces of gold. Sometimes the search changes, long before the destination is reached. Imagine, too, the historians who continue examining old archives. Every few years, another forgotten newspaper is rediscovered. A faded letter surfaces in a family collection. An overlooked court document receives fresh attention. Rarely do these discoveries solve the mystery completely. Instead, they deepen our understanding of the people involved. History is rarely finished. It quietly grows richer with every new piece of evidence. The same is true for geology. Scientists continue learning more about volcanic landscapes, mineral formation, and the forces that shaped Arizona over millions of years. Each discovery helps explain the mountains themselves, even if it does not reveal a hidden mine. The legend has encouraged curiosity across many fields of knowledge: history, geology, archaeology, cartography, ecology, even literature. That may be one reason it has endured for so long. It invites many different kinds of explorers. Imagine asking yourself a simple question. Suppose someone announced tomorrow that the lost Dutchman's gold mine had finally been found. Suppose every mystery disappeared overnight, the location confirmed, the history verified, the treasure recovered. Would the story become stronger or weaker? It is an interesting thought. Many mysteries lose a little of their magic once every question has been answered. The search ends. Wonder quietly gives way to certainty. Perhaps this legend survives because it remains unfinished. Every generation inherits not an answer, but an invitation. Imagine standing once more upon a quiet overlook high above the desert. Morning has given way to afternoon. The mountains stretch endlessly toward the horizon. The same ridges that challenge prospectors now welcome hikers. The same valleys that inspired rumors now shelter wildflowers after seasonal rains. Time has changed the people. It has scarcely changed the mountains. There is something comforting about that. In a world that constantly changes, certain landscapes remind us of continuity. The Superstition Mountains existed long before Jacob Waltz arrived. They will remain long after today's visitors have returned home. The legend is only one brief chapter within their much longer story. Yet, it is a beautiful chapter. Imagine a single grain of desert sand resting quietly beside an old trail. Thousands of travelers have stepped past it. Indigenous hunters, Spanish explorers, prospectors, treasure hunters, scientists, photographers, families, each arrived carrying different hopes. The mountain welcomed them all equally. It offered no promises, only possibilities. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within this legend. Hope itself can be a worthwhile destination. Not every journey must end with treasure. Some end with knowledge, some with friendship, some with respect for nature, some with stories that will be shared for generations. Imagine Jacob Waltz looking across these mountains one final time. Whether he truly carried the greatest mining secret in Arizona, or whether history slowly transformed an ordinary miner into an extraordinary legend. His name became permanently connected with this remarkable landscape. Few people leave such an enduring mark upon history, not through wealth, but through mystery. As the afternoon slowly softens into evening, Long shadows once again stretch across the valleys. The desert grows quiet. The colors become gentler. The mountains seem almost dreamlike beneath the fading light. Our own journey is nearly complete. Only one peaceful evening remains before we quietly say farewell to the Superstition Mountains. Together, we will leave behind questions that may never be answered, appreciate the timeless beauty of the desert, and reflect upon why some mysteries are most meaningful not because they are solved, but because they invite us to keep wondering. That gentle reflection awaits us in our final chapter, beneath a sky filled with stars, where the story can finally rest, just as peacefully as the mountains themselves. Imagine the Superstition Mountains beneath a sky filled with stars. The day's warmth has slowly drifted away, leaving behind the cool comfort of the desert night. The silhouettes of jagged peaks stand quietly against the heavens, while the Milky Way stretches from one horizon to the other in a river of soft, white light. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote calls across the valleys. The sound echoes gently through the darkness before fading into silence. Everything grows still. The desert, which only hours ago shimmered beneath the blazing Arizona sun, now feels peaceful and timeless. It is the perfect place to end our journey. Over the past 2 hours, we have wandered together through one of America's greatest mysteries. We began with the remarkable landscape itself, where volcanic mountains rise unexpectedly from the Sonoran Desert. We explored the deep history of the people who first knew this land, long before prospectors and treasure hunters arrived. We followed Spanish exploration, listened to old frontier legends, and met the quiet German immigrant named Jacob Waltz, whose life gradually became entwined with one of history's most enduring mysteries. We climbed rugged canyons, we studied old maps, we examined forgotten clues. We met determined treasure hunters, hopeful dreamers, careful geologists, patient historians, and modern explorers carrying satellite technology instead of hand-drawn sketches. At every step, we asked the same gentle question: what really happened? The honest answer has remained wonderfully consistent. Some things we know, some things we strongly suspect, and some things may forever remain beyond our reach. Imagine walking one final trail through the mountains. The moon has risen now, casting a soft silver glow across the desert floor. Every saguaro casts a long shadow. Every rocky ridge seems gentler beneath the quiet light of evening. There is no urgency, no race to discover hidden gold, only the simple pleasure of walking beneath an endless sky. As your footsteps settle into a slow, comfortable rhythm, it becomes easier to notice details that treasure hunters may have overlooked. The delicate fragrance of desert sage after sunset, the soft rustling of leaves in the evening breeze, the quiet movements of small nocturnal animals beginning their nightly journeys, the remarkable stillness that exists only in places far removed from busy cities. Perhaps this is the greatest gift the Superstition Mountains have always offered. Not riches, stillness. Imagine pausing beside a smooth boulder warmed by the day's sunlight, though it is slowly cooling beneath the night air. You sit quietly for a while. There is nothing left to solve, nothing left to prove. Only mountains that have stood here for millions of years, watching countless generations come and go, long before the first indigenous hunters crossed these valleys, long before Spanish explorers wondered what lay beyond the next ridge, long before Jacob Waltz quietly entered the story. The mountains were already here, patient, silent, enduring. They remind us that human lives, though precious, are wonderfully brief chapters within a far older world. And yet, those brief chapters matter, because stories matter. Imagine all the people connected by this single legend. A miner carrying unusually rich ore back into town. a woman caring for an aging friend during his final illness, a newspaper editor choosing an intriguing headline, families gathering around campfires, children listening with wide eyes, historians carefully preserving fragile documents, geologists examining ancient rocks, hikers stopping to admire a breathtaking sunrise. Each became part of the story without realizing it. Perhaps that is how legends truly survive. Not because every detail is accurate, but because every generation chooses to carry them forward. There is something deeply human about searching for hidden things. Sometimes we search for treasure. Sometimes we search for forgotten history. Sometimes we search for answers about ourselves. The lost Dutchman's gold mine has always represented more than gold alone. It represents possibility, hope, curiosity, the quiet belief that somewhere beyond the next ridge, another discovery may be waiting, even if that discovery turns out to be something entirely unexpected. Imagine that tomorrow morning another explorer enters the Superstition Mountains. They carry enough water, a detailed map, good hiking boots, respect for the desert. Perhaps they know every chapter of the legend. Perhaps they have never heard it before. Either way, the mountains greet them exactly the same, without promises, without disappointment, without judgment. Nature asks for nothing except respect. It gives beauty freely, whether treasure exists or not. As our journey comes gently to its close, perhaps the greatest mystery is not the location of a hidden mine. Perhaps it is why certain stories continue speaking to us across generations. Thousands of treasure legends have appeared throughout history. Many have faded away. This one endured. Maybe because Jacob Waltz was real. Maybe because the mountains are real. Maybe because the evidence leaves just enough room for wonder. Or maybe because everyone enjoys believing that not every mystery has been solved. In a world where maps cover nearly every corner of the globe and satellites photograph the Earth from space, it is strangely comforting to know that some questions remain open, not because knowledge has failed us, but because history is often incomplete. The past leaves footprints. Time allows many of them to disappear. Imagine looking once more toward Weaver's Needle, now illuminated only by moonlight. Its familiar outline rises proudly against the stars, just as it has for countless centuries. It has witnessed storms powerful enough to reshape entire valleys. It has watched rivers carve canyons from solid rock. It has stood quietly while generations searched for answers among its shadows. If those ancient cliffs could speak, perhaps they would smile gently at all our questions, then return to silence. The desert has never seemed troubled by uncertainty. Only people are. Perhaps there is wisdom in that. Not every unanswered question demands an answer. Some simply invite reflection. Some encourage humility. Some remind us that wonder is a valuable part of life. The lost Dutchman's gold mine may or may not exist. History has not yet given us a final answer. Perhaps it never will. But the legend has already accomplished something remarkable. It has inspired curiosity. It has encouraged exploration. It has led countless people to appreciate the extraordinary beauty of the Superstition Mountains. It has brought history, geology, folklore, and nature together into one unforgettable story. That in itself is a treasure. Imagine the night growing quieter still. The breeze becomes softer. The stars appear brighter. The desert settles into peaceful rest. Somewhere beyond the dark ridges, hidden canyons wait for another sunrise. Ancient rocks continue their patient existence. The mystery remains exactly where we found it, untouched, unfinished, waiting, and perhaps that is exactly where it belongs. As you allow your thoughts to become a little slower and a little lighter, let the mountains quietly fade into the distance. Let the winding trails disappear beneath the gentle glow of moonlight. Let the stories drift softly into the cool desert air, joining the countless others that have been whispered across these valleys for generations. There is nowhere else you need to go tonight, nothing more to search for, only the quiet comfort of knowing that some mysteries are beautiful precisely because they endure. Thank you for spending this peaceful journey with me. Thank you for exploring the history, the legends, and the timeless beauty of the Superstition Mountains here on Whispered History. Wherever you're listening in the world, I hope this story has brought you a little curiosity, a little calm, and perhaps a few pleasant dreams of quiet desert skies and ancient mountains standing patiently beneath the stars. Until our next journey into the past, sleep well, take care, and from all of us here at Whispered History, good night.